Good day, everyone. Our topic for today is all about the fabrication and identification of a wholesale and retail cuts of livestock and poultry carcass. Meat fabrication. It is the process of cutting, boning, and portioning large of meat to minute specification. Becoming the proficient at the fabricating whole carcass or primal meat cuts takes to practice, obtained through an apprenticeship under a master meat cutter. Ang meat fabrication po is the process of cutting the carcass into standard wholesale and retail cuts. The skill of separating the various carcass into easily handleable primal and subprimal cuts for the various reasons. The different muscle originating the various parts of the animal's body have a different composition when it comes in cooking methods are recommended. The dressed carcass are the process whole split into the side or cut into the quarters, fore and head quarters. More often, carcass are fabricated into the primal cuts of meat. Ang carcass po, ito po ay dead body of an animal, especially po one slaughtered and dresses for the food. Ang primal cuts naman po ay ito po ay pieces of the meat initially separated from the carcass of an animal during butchering. Ang example naman po nito ay round, loin, rib, and chunk for the beef or the ham, loin, boston, back, and picnic for the pork. Ang subprimal cuts naman po ay when it comes from the pork is the shoulder, include the shoulder blade, steak, cottage roll, shoulder picnic, riblets, and jaw. Sa beef naman po ay sa beef naman po ay top round, full tenderloin, and rib eye. Any subprimal cuts po may not be intended for the use in the ground products. There are four general principles of meat fabrication. The first is the tender meat is separated from the tough meat. Ang example po ng tender meat is the tenderloin which is found within the loin. Ang tough meat naman po is example of chunk, round, brisket, and shank meat. The second general principle naman po is the thick portion must be separated from the thin portion. And the third is the muscle must be cut across the meat for the fiber grain. And the last is the cheap parts must be separated from the expensive parts. The skeletal and muscle structure. There are 7 major bones in skeleton that aid in meat identification and fabrication. The first is shoulder arm bone, which is part of the stirrup front around shoulder girdle. It encompasses the area from the pectoral muscle across the ribs to the shoulder itself and up to the backbone. The next is shoulder blade bone. It contains the blade bone and several muscles. The next is the rib bone. It is the thin bones with the lots of meat attached. The next is the long T-bone. It is contained through primary muscle. The large muscle is the top loin and the smaller muscle is the tenderloin. Next is the spare rib bone. This bone taken from the belly side from the rib cage below the section from the back ribs and above the breastbone. Next is the hip bone. The hip bones are the pork bones from the leg. And the last is the leg round bone. It is located further back on the sirloin area of the beef loin.
Primal cuts. There are 4 primal cuts: the shoulder, rib, loin, and leg, found on all animal carcasses. But depending on the species, there are some differences in naming and fabricating this cut. Beef and cara beef carcasses. So front quarter, chuck, rib or also known as prime cut, brisket, plate or also known as short plate, shank or foreshank. So this is the illustration of the words that I've said earlier. Muton and chevon, front quarter neck, shoulder, party rank, shank. So this is the primal cuts. So yeah. Muton and chevon carcasses, hind quarter, loin, eye of loin, tenderloin, chump, and leg.
For the pork carcasses, we have 8 primal cuts, and these are jowl, Boston butt, picnic shoulder, loin, spare ribs, side, ham, and foot. So, let us discuss this one by one. So, jowl is a cut of pork from a pig's cheek. Different food traditions have used it as a fresh cut or as a cured pork product with smoke and or curing salt. As a cured and smoked meat in America, it is called jowl bacon, or especially in the southern United States, it is called hog jowl or jowl meat. Boston butt. A Boston butt is the slightly wedge-shaped portion of the pork shoulder above the standard picnic cut, which includes the blade bone and the lean butt, and it is boneless. Both extensions of the tenderloin cut and can be used in place of the tenderloin. And for the picnic shoulder, it is located directly below the Boston butt, and it includes all the leg until the hock right above the pig's front foot. For the loin, it starts at the hip and it's made up of this sirloin, the short loin, and the tenderloin. So next is spare ribs. So these are cut from the ends of baby back ribs and run along to the pig's breastbone. For the side, it is uncured, unsmoked option from the belly, and both the side of pork and bacon come sliced. And for the ham, it is a type of pork that comes from the hind leg of a hog. Ham can be preserved and prepared in many different ways, while on the other hand, foot is the shoulder and primal also. It includes the front feet on the hog, and there are a variety of ways to prepare the pig's feet, but because the front feet are smaller than the back feet, they are typically the primarily ingredients in gelatin, and pig's feet are excellent for making gelatin since they are naturally rich in collagen. So chicken carcasses. So we have 4 primal cuts, and these are breast, wing, thigh, drumstick. So let us discuss this one by one. So the chicken breast is a lean cut of meat taken from the pectoral muscle on the underside of the chicken. Each whole chicken contains 1 chicken breast with 2 halves, which are typically separated during the butchering process and sold as individual breasts. And for the wings don't make the meatiest cut, but they can still pack plenty of crunch and flavor. Wings may serve whole or divided into drumettes, which connects directly to the torso, and plats, which are the smaller piece closer to the wing tips, and also they are usually cooked briefly at high temperature and are a classic choice for game day and tailgating. So third is thigh. So a lot of poultry fans really enjoy dark meat, which is one of the reasons that thighs are so popular. So thigh meat is darker and contains more oil than breast meat, making it juicier cut that's much more forgiving when slightly overcooked. And lastly is the drumstick. Drumstick is one of the few cuts of meat that comes with its own convenient handle and just enough meat for a big bite. So drumsticks are the legs with the feet removed. The dark meat is this cut is friendly to heavy seasoning and marinades as well as grills and barbecues. It is also one of the most popular cuts of chicken when fried. So fabrication differences based on size. When it comes to meat fabrications, size matters. A beef carcass weighing 600 pounds, 275 kilos is approximately 33% larger than a veal carcass weighing 400 pounds or 180 kilo, and a pork carcass weighing 270 pounds or 125 kilo is approximately 33% smaller than a veal carcass. So a lamb carcass weighing approximately 65 pounds or 30 kilo is roughly 1/4 of the size of a beef carcass and 1/10 of the size of a pork carcass. So the difference in yield between species for the same muscle can be dramatic. A steer tenderloin can weigh more than 6 pounds or 2.7 kilo, whereas a veal tenderloin weighs about 2 pounds or 900 grams only. So a pork loin weighs about 1 pound or 500 grams and a lamb tenderloin weighs a couple of ounces. Because of their small size, some viable cuts on a beef carcass such as a hanger steak or flank steak are not marketable on lamb or pork carcass. So cutting direction. Although wool muscles are made without regard for the grain of the meat, portion cuts are made by cutting across the grain of the meat. This results in short fibers in the meat that are easy to cut and chew when served. While some of cuts, such as the loin and tenderloin, are made up of wool muscle that are portioned by cutting across the grain, shoulder and leg cuts are made up to many muscles with varying degrees of tenderness running in different directions, making portioning more difficult, and some muscles can be seamed out for these cuts, while others are too small and are used to braces, tools, or grinding. So, let us consider and be aware that cutting direction is very important when it comes to meat.
So when it comes to boning or boneless, some meat cuts such as T-bone steaks, pork back ribs, rack of lamb, and shanks are made bone-in for appearance and flavor. When comparing to bone-in meat has a more intense flavor when cooked. In the United States, boneless meats are prepared because they are easier to eat without the need to separate the meat from the bone. Connective tissue, elastin and collagen, which are found throughout the carcass, hold the muscle fibers together in the bundles and also bind them to the skeletal structure. As the name implies, elastin is tough and elastic, and it does not degrade during the cooking process and should thus be avoided. When heated, collagen melts and forms gelatin, which is often left on the muscle for flavor and texture. So, Gobber fat and intramuscular fat in the form of marbling provides flavor and juiciness. When the marbling in meat muscle smells during the cooking process, it provides flavor and juiciness. So, cover fat on meat roast the meat naturally while cooking when roasted fat side up. So, removing cover fat or steam fat is necessary at times, but because it adds flavor, care should be taken not to remove too much. And always remember, start with a clean station and practice high standards of sanitation when cutting meats. Keep the product cold and if needed, place it on a pan of ice. Some operations will have temperature controlled rooms to keep the meats cold. It is also important to have the right tools that are properly sharpened and the honing still handy. And We always wear PPE to avoid contamination. And that's our report. Thank you.